Speaking of brilliant political moves, I've had a number of people mention this next topic to me, and I didn't think it was all that serious, but maybe it is. James Skinner is founder and chief executive of KANZUK International. Apparently, the federal conservative leader, Erin O'Toole, is quite a big supporter of this. Is it going to happen? What is it? What am I talking about? Well, James joins us now to tell us what it is. James, thanks so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So first of all, I know that there are some people who will immediately know what I'm talking about when I say KANZUK International. But for those who don't, who are you and what is it you're trying to do?
Sure. So KANZUK International was an organization I founded back in 2015, and it's essentially, in a nutshell, to promote closer diplomatic arrangements between the KANZUK countries. And KANZUK is the acronym for Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom. And the reason it's those four countries is because we have, such close cultural, historical, ancestral ties, especially with our relationship to the Commonwealth. And the idea of our organization is essentially to promote diplomatic arrangements between these countries, mostly focusing on reciprocal migration, free trade, and foreign policy agreements. So it's really an organization that's advocating for these four nations to form a loose-based alliance that would benefit not only our economies, but the opportunities for citizens as well.
It seems like you might be succeeding because we also have the Canada and the UK agreeing to continue trade post-Brexit. I imagine that's kind of part and parcel in this, but give me your take on the significance of that decision.
I mean, it was great to hear because obviously the UK right now, its transition period with the EU is going to be concluding at the end of this year. And of course, for trade to continue on with Canada, of course, is great news for us to hear, especially as Canada is the UK's fifth largest trading partner. So, of course, there's billions of dollars worth of trade there that's to continue. But what's also important as well is that as part of those trade agreements that they're going to continue, or the trade negotiations they're going to continue next year, both countries have agreed to basically consider a more comprehensive deal moving forward, which, of course, does complement what we are saying at KANZUK, is that we would like to see more negotiations regarding reciprocal migration, visa mobility, foreign affairs cooperation, and things like that. So it was great news for us.
Well, it's sort of strange to me, though, because it seems like part of the reason why the UK exited from the European Union is they didn't want to have this kind of reciprocal movement of people. And so why would we think that they'd be any more interested in having it with us in Australia and New Zealand?
Yeah, it's a good question. I take a slightly different take on it. I myself am British, and from what I've gathered just from friends and family and just living in the UK for the better part of 2 decades, I've never noticed the UK have any issue in regards to free movement, quite simply because the UK throughout its whole history has never had a period where it hasn't had free movement. Before joining the EEC in 1973, the UK had free movement amongst Commonwealth countries. After it joined the EEC in 1973, it had free movement with European nations. And then, of course, to this day, right now, 2020, it still has freedom of movement with the European Union. So there's never been a time in the UK where it hasn't had free movement, and it's longing for the golden years of where, it was this independent own island with no free movement. I've never seen that happen in the UK, but I think what it was is that most of the reasons for Brexit was simply because the UK did not like the avenue that the EU was going down in terms of promoting an ever closer federalist state, really. The EU right now has its own parliament, it has its own national anthem, it has its own court system, it has its own currency. All these things were not really what the UK signed up to under the European Economic Community in 1973, which was specifically focused on trade, and somehow it developed into a more political agenda. But with KANZUK, that simply wouldn't happen. All we're promoting is basically a loose alliance of 4 countries, being Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the UK, where they'll remain sovereign, independent nations working together on mutual agreements such as migration, trade, and foreign policy accords. So there would be no push for a federalist agenda and no political agenda. It would simply be these countries working together for the betterment of not only prosperity, but also opportunity for their citizens.
I just want to explore that a bit because you're telling me things that I think are at odds with what I've heard before. And so I just want to see your perspective on it. Because number one, I thought that the UK citizens were really unhappy with members of former European nations, I think Poland in particular, using the free movement agreement to come in and then undercut the tradesmen and others who were already native residents of the UK. Am I completely out to lunch on that? Because that's what I gather would be some of the barriers to us being able to make the same argument.
Yeah, no. I don't think you're outright wrong about that at all. I think it was more a minor issue. Going back to the referendum in 2016, I think that was more a minor issue in comparison to the federalist argument that I just put forward. I think a lot of Brits were just very scared of the federalist agenda that the EU keeps promoting time and time again. The free movement issue, there were some underlying currents of that being a concern in the UK. Absolutely, you're not wrong about that, but. Again, what that was essentially entailing was you had many citizens in the EU, about 508 million of them. A lot of them reside in countries as well, which don't have the economic prosperity that the United Kingdom does. There's countries in there like Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, as you just mentioned, great countries, but again, they are not on par in terms of economic development with the United Kingdom. So what you saw with the free movement issue in the EU was that you had a lot of citizens of these countries come into the UK for better wages, better job opportunities, better employment standards, and of course, not enough UK citizens going to these countries in return, which of course created a lot of strain on the infrastructure of the United Kingdom. So there was that underlying issue of free movement with the EU that caused problems in the UK for sure. But again, coming back to the KANZUK issue, that simply would not be a problem. You wouldn't see, for example, anybody in Alberta moving to New Zealand specifically for their healthcare system, or you wouldn't see anybody in Alberta specifically moving to Australia simply because the employment standards are better there, because these countries are so comparable in so many ways, not just on employment standards, but also quality of life, low unemployment rates, very good GDP per capita rates. So there wouldn't be that issue of, a migration influx from one country to the other, like what we saw with the EU or certain citizens of the EU countries going to the United Kingdom.
Okay, now that you've got me all excited about this, I want to take a pause so that people can think this through and find out how close we are to making this happen. James Skinner's my guest. He's founder and chief executive of KANZUK International. This is C for Canada, A for Australia, NZ for New Zealand, and UK, all joining together in sort of a common trade, common movement, common visas. Would you be up for that? I'm kind of up for that. Let's take a pause. We'll get your thoughts when we return on Chorus Radio. All right, guys. I feel like I'm telling you my deepest, darkest secrets today. I may as well give you full disclosure. David, his mom came from Derry in Northern Ireland. His dad came from Liverpool in the UK. This is our retirement plan. We're planning on using his British passport to go and hang out in the UK for a while. But what if you were able to do that too, regardless of having that kind of close family contact? What if you were able to say, you know what, do we choose a UK or do we go Australia or do we go New Zealand? All the possibilities. James Skinner's my guest. He's founder and chief executive of KANZUK International. So, James, how serious is this proposal? Give me some sense of whether or not it's just sort of a nice idea, or is it moving in this direction? Who's pushing it?
So of course, we at KANZUK International are the main advocates for it, and we're spearheading the movement. But it's gained a lot of public and political attention as well. Publicly, we've done polling in all of these countries. We estimate that about 76% of Canadians support it. 73% in Australia, 82% in New Zealand, and about 70% in the UK as well. And that's also been confirmed as well by other polls that have been done too. And then, of course, politically as well, we're certainly gaining a lot of traction too. As you mentioned earlier, obviously the opposition party here under Erin O'Toole have fully endorsed it and fully embraced it as part of their party platform. And I think actually in their party convention back in 2018, they adopted it with 97% delegate approval. Of course, in the UK right now, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, he's fully supportive of it and has openly stated that, if there's something more we can do with Canada, Australia, New Zealand, we certainly should. In New Zealand right now, the opposition party there is supportive. So it's certainly gaining traction politically.
Okay, I must ask, is this being pressed by the monarchy? Is this sort of like getting the band back together and trying to rebuild the empire?
No, absolutely not. I mean, obviously, we all accept that the days of the empire are long gone, and the monarchy, it does have an affiliation to it, being that Queen Elizabeth II is head of state in all of these countries. But It's certainly not any form of monarchy push. It doesn't matter whether you're a monarchist or a Republican. KANZUK is beneficial for you in many ways, in the sense that you could migrate freely to any of these countries and live and work in these countries, which gives you tremendous employment opportunities. Obviously, free trade as well. That's going to promote economic growth and prosperity here in Canada and also in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. So it works for everybody, regardless of what affiliation you have with the monarchy.
Well, James, it's such a mind-blowing concept to even consider that this is already moving along, and I'm glad to hear you tell us about it. We'll definitely have you back on again. Let us know if there's any developments, and we'd be happy to have you on to discuss it again.
Yeah, certainly. That sounds great, and I'd be happy to come back on and speak to you about it too. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Beautiful. James Skinner is founder and chief executive of KANZUK International. I'm going to send you to his website, www.kanzukinternational.com, so you can find out all about it. Let's start there with our calls. What do you think? 403-974-8255, 780-496-0063 when we return on Chorus Radio.